Right now, the window is open. Opportunity is staring you right in the face. But the window won't stay open forever. Opportunity will pass by. And like so many things that we look back on, there will be another thing if we don't take advantage of it now that will be something that we wish we would have done. Let's not let that happen to us. Let's take advantage of the opportunities that we have today, in the day we call today, to make the difference in this world that only you can make in this day we call today. Hi, my name's Steve Kidd. I am a third generation minister, international best-selling author of 40 books and counting. Over the course of the last 40 years in business, I've had the incredibly amazing privilege of working with over 5,000 authors, helping them everywhere in the process of writing, publishing, marketing their books to bestseller, and all the things that come beyond that. We're talking about people who are doctors and lawyers, multi-billionaires, Fortune 500 company owners and CEOs and founders, and all of those kind of things. But we're also talking about people that are stay-at-home moms. We're talking about people who are brand new startup companies. We're talking about people that you absolutely have heard of, and folks that very likely you never will actually in your own little world know of. But they're people who have made a massive, amazing difference. They took what they had and they did what they could do today. Now, it starts off, as I say in my book, the new version of it's actually supposed to be here today in print, so I can show you the newer copy. You know, it's been out for a while, but I just finally ordered the print copy for me for here on my desk. Bestseller is only the beginning. That's the title of the book. That's what the book is about. It's only the beginning. It's where you start. Anybody that knows how to really, truly launch a book and set up the SEO and do all those kind of things, anybody that's in that space, they will tell you that, and they will be able to get you on the bestseller list on that launch. But that's only going to last for a day or a couple of weeks. If we do nothing else with that credential, it means nothing. You can go through the entire process of going to medical school, graduating, getting getting not just your master's degree, but your doctorate. So you're a doctor of anatomy and physiology. You can go through your internship and move beyond that to residency. Hey, Grandma, how you doing? Um, you know, but when you quit, all that you've done, you bring that knowledge with you, but you don't get to if you don't finish the process. If you graduated from medical school, Sophie, glad to have you here with us. If you graduated from medical school and you didn't choose to go into an internship, you're not going to be doing doctoring to people. If you start your internship and it becomes too difficult for you, which it happens for most, you're never going to become a surgeon. In fact, you can't even have a general practice office. At best, you would have at that point the credentialing that you might be able to go back and get some more schooling and get your degree as a nurse practitioner and operate in a doctor's office in that way. And it goes on and on like that. The same thing's true if you are a high school athlete and you're the tippity top of your school. If you quit practicing, you're going to find that when you move from high school to being the superstar, to being the guy that it's like, I don't even need to do any of the practice because I've got all these people beat. When you get to college, all of a sudden, you're going to be the bottom of the barrel because you're talking about people who, when they were the superstar of the national champion, high school national champion team, they were still spending the hours and hours. If you were listening when Willie and I were talking on Wednesday, we were talking about this very concept. and you hear people like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, people like that talk about the hours and hours of time practicing. For me, there's nothing more disappointing, nothing more, trying to think of a harsher word, but anyway, than seeing somebody stand at the free throw line. And I'm talking about on the pro level, and miss. Now, I'm not saying that they should hit 100% of them, but I'm saying that, when you look at NBA stats, you often find that a lot of them are in like the 60 and 70% range for what they hit. Now, yeah, you could move over to a different sport and talk about, like, for example, in baseball, if you're a 300 hitter, meaning you hit about 3 times out of every 10, you get a hit. That's considered to be really great. And so I can see where you could be like, hey, that's being really harsh. But it's the people who spend the hours, like Willie and I talked about. It's that guy that's out in the driveway. Somebody's got, or they've put up a spotlight or whatever, so the only light in the whole entire area is the light that's shining on the hoop, and they're still in the dark making the shots over and over and over again. It's the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of hours of doing the mechanics, the basics. It's the piano player who has played the scales over and 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 over again. Those are the ones that can do the amazing things. That is the difference. I don't know if you ever watch any of the shows, but my family really, really loves shows like American Idol and The Voice and things like that. Hey, Caden, glad to have you here with us. But often, and this comes from having been in the industry, often when they come out to audition, they bring their guitar with them, and they do it. And I'll tell you, just, behind the scenes, in case you don't know, they do it as a crutch. Okay. There are, the Keith Urbans, and the Eddie Van Halens, although Eddie Van Halen wasn't that great of a singer. There are people that are amazingly talented guitar players. They can shred. I mean, they can tear that whole entire building up with the on fire riffs that they're doing on the guitar. Okay. But most of the people on those audition shows, you see them, they look down to see where their hand is. If you've got to look at your hand, you haven't practiced guitar enough. Not at that. And again, I'm talking from the professional level on the way down. Okay, I know this because I'm a vocalist. I learned how to play bass, but though I've done it, in front of worship groups in church, I'm not at a level where I would ever perform at it. Now you have two different types of guitar players. You have the Gene Simmons, who knows the rudimentary basics and is an absolute metronome at them. Okay. I mean, nobody's going to talk about the massive scales and arpeggios that Gene Simmons is doing in his playing, but he's consistent. Like I said, like a metronome, consistent, hitting those notes, and can you imagine how many times Gene Simmons has played the song Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day? Can you imagine the level of beyond boredom to absolute, even really beyond you can do it in your sleep, that he's reached with that kind of a situation? You see, it's when we do that kind of thing that we really truly get the outcome. But unfortunately, if we don't continue to do that practice, if we don't continue, and now I'm going to, move away from the music industry and move into your business. If we don't continue to do the marketing things that we can do that give us the visibility, the exposure, if we don't really clearly know who we are, if we're not consistently marketing, one of the biggest mistakes that far too many companies make, is they cut their marketing budget. When you cut your marketing budget, it's like cutting your own throat. It's like, slicing your jugular vein. It's not a question of if you're going to die, it's a matter of how quick. There are certain veins in the human body that, you only have moments to fix them, or you're going to completely bleed out very quickly. And marketing is that kind of lifeblood, heartbeat, thing that you've got in your business, and you need to do it. And you need to do the things consistently that really allow you to connect with people. And that is more than anything where your book comes in. If you're consistently marketing it and getting it in front of people, if we don't take the time, or we don't have a consistent, persistent, ongoing plan for how we're going to market our book, if we don't have a budget that goes specifically to our marketing that says, I'm going to spend X amount on my marketing every single day, week, month, we're going to have problems. So now you may be asking me, okay, Steve, what does this have to do with the window open? For far too many, and I even had this conversation again last night with somebody, I've had it so many times. For far too many, they launch the book and then do nothing. They, launch the product and then they don't have a marketing plan for it. Worse yet, they hobble together, and I've done this myself. Okay, so I'm not judging. All right, you hobble together a program, but then you have absolutely no marketing budget to let the world know about it. Now, it doesn't have to be very advanced. You can do like what I'm doing currently. You can write the book on it, put the book out. Yes, you want to make it a bestseller because that's how you launch it, and you get that initial credibility, and you create that initial wave. It's like throwing a big giant rock in the middle of the pond, and you create the ripples. But then you need ongoingly, day to day, week to week, month to month, a marketing program. And that marketing program has to be involved in the concept of, how am I going to get actual real human beings, not bot programs, not places who are like, we're going to post you on a million different, on a million viewer website where, there's also 500 other books that are going to be posted today that are on that million viewer website. I'm talking about real, actual human beings acquiring your book. What's the process of getting that book in their hands? There's a couple of different ways of doing it. The number one most impactful way, of course, is your reviews. Somebody that purchases your book, reads your book, and then posts the review. And there's a lot of work in that. We've taken all the work out of that for you. If you've ever tried to do it yourself, even with your closest friends, even with your family, 2, 10, 20, 50, 100 different times you've asked them. And a lot of the people will, you probably even have experienced this yourself. The only way at the end you get that person to really write the review is you literally sit down with them when they're at your house, and you get them to log into their Amazon account while they're sitting there right with you and write the review and post it right then. And short of them doing that, they mean to, that, they're going to get around to it, but they don't do it. And that's what I talk about when I'm talking about the window. Okay, we've been in business 40 years. We're not going anywhere. We're here to help you whenever you're ready. But once you put that book out, the window's wide open. The whole world is waiting for you to bring the things out to them, not for the world to come rushing into your window, but for you to rush everything you've got out that window and massively share your message with the world, to sing at the top of your voice out that window, your message. But as time goes by, that window begins to slide shut. Now, here's the good news. For some of you, you've waited long enough, the window's completely shut. We absolutely have the process to be able to begin to raise that window up. We can throw it wide open. There's processes of doing that. Or we can open it little by little. That all just really has to do with your budget, more than anything. Everything's time versus money. It's either you're going to spend a whole lot of time, or you're going to spend, a whole lot of money. And that's not me trying to get you to spend a ton of money, but I'm just saying that, the faster you want it to go, the more time and more money you got to spend. It's just the reality of it. The window is there. It's not like the window got bricked over. It's not like it's not imminently openable. Jimi Hendrix looked at his hands. Was he not practiced enough? Jimi Hendrix looked at his hands for a completely different reason. Okay. We could go into the whole Jimi Hendrix thing for hours and hours and hours. Okay. But Jimmy also could play, like this with his teeth. Okay. Jimmy could play the guitar behind his back. All right. Totally different situation. But thanks for commenting, Mr. Mooch. I appreciate you being involved in the thing. You watch those shows and you see now the next time you see somebody look down at their hands and you see the disconnect between their vocals and their music. And also, since we're talking about Jimi Hendrix, whenever Jimmy was really, really into what he was playing, his vocals, Jimi Hendrix is not one of the world's greatest vocalists. Okay. He was one of the world's greatest guitar players. Same thing's true with Eddie Van Halen. Nobody's calling Eddie Van Halen to be the lead singer for Van Halen. That's why there was always David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar or those kind of things. It's a person trying to do both when they only really have the expertise in one or the other. Totally different subject. Sorry. I totally hijacked myself. You need to walk through the window. You need to open it up or use it while it's open and really maximize the day that's called today. I encourage you, DM the word amplify. Put it in a comment. Send me a message because the window is open. It's your time to decide to step through. And I hope you will because somebody's waiting on you. It's been a lot of fun today. I'm so glad to be here with you. I hope you're happy, safe, warm, and loved. Tomorrow we'll get together again and we'll kick off our whole new week. Technically, tomorrow will be literally the first of the month and we'll kick off our whole new month. And I got to take a look at what we're going to ultimately talk about next month. But until we're together again next month, which is tomorrow, I hope you have a great week.